welcome back to another episode of the Hemlane Hustle. Today, we've got none other than two real estate legends joining us, Kathy and Rich Fettke. Together, they've helped people achieve financial freedom by acquiring over 1.3 billion in assets and survived more market swings than a theme park roller coaster. Kathy is the voice behind the Real Wealth Network, or the Real Wealth Show, real estate news for investors, and co-host of the Bigger Pockets on the Market, where she breaks down complex market trends into digestible insights. Rich and Kathy are also the co-founders of the Real Wealth Network. They've been doing it for over 20 years, and of a new book, which we will talk about today, Scaling Smart. On a personal note, Rich is the guy with a passion for extreme sports, including competing in the X Games, with even more extreme real estate goals. If you're ready to learn how to build wealth without losing your mind or your work-life balance, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the show, Rich and Kathy.
Thank you. Looking forward to it, Dana.
Great. Well, first, I just want to start with I think a lot of couples out there are looking at the two of you saying this is our couple's life goals, in what you guys have built and what you've built for others. Tell us about your journey of how you got started in real estate.
It was really by accident. I mean, Rich and I had always wanted to invest in real estate. We just didn't know how, and we thought it would be something we'd have to do later in life when we had saved for many, many decades.
Totally.
Yeah, but then we had one of those like aha moments in life. Rich had just kind of hit a new milestone. He'd come out with a new book called Extreme Success. His coaching practice was really taking off. He was part of the creation of the ICF, the International Coach Federation. And we were really doing everything right as far as our financial planner would say. We were putting 10% aside for savings, 10% for future investments, 10% for vacations, 10% for charity, all the buckets, all the things you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
And then when Rich was on his book tour, he noticed a freckle, which he's a freckly guy, he's a redhead. So, but he noticed this one weird freckle, had it checked. It turned out to be melanoma. This was 20 years ago, and they didn't have a lot of the treatments they have today. Melanoma was just kind of considered a death sentence, really. And it was a terrifying moment. The doctor thought it had spread to his liver. He said, if that's the case, Rich probably has 6 months to live. We knew a bunch
Wow.
of people who had died from melanoma. It was terrifying. So
Mhm.
I thought, I'm going to not believe any of that and believe he's going to be healthy. And in the meantime, I'm going to find a way to let him not have to be on the treadmill, so much, so he could sort of take care of himself, but also I wanted to be in a position where at that time, Rich, he worked for money, meaning if he didn't work, there was no money coming in because we didn't know anything about passive income, and assets that could generate money whether you're working or not.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what I had a radio show. My background was in broadcasting. I took the radio show and just dove into trying to understand this thing called passive income. That's how it started. And that show is here today called The Real Wealth Show, 20 years
And
later.
and Rich, we're so excited that you're here and that 6 months did not happen to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was a misdiagnosis. They call it a false positive. They thought a melanoma had spread to my liver, but it had not. It was just a reading on the CT scan and all that. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked to get the news that I was cancer free.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for that. I want to go through market swings because obviously the health scare is a very scary. You also went through the 2008 crash as well.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
so you've had quite a roller coaster journey. Talk about that and the different waves of real estate you've been in and what you found and how your mindset has gotten through it, how you decide to go in and purchase more real estate, and when to be conservative versus when to be aggressive. How do you think about that? And the reason I ask that question is there's so many people looking at interest rates right now, and they're still dreaming about, a couple of years ago when interest rates were really low. And so, how do you get into the right mindset and know what to do? And then I'd love to also hear just some stories about terrible situations you've overcome in investing in real estate.
Yeah,
So
I'll
many.
jump in. It's just, I mean, on the mindset piece, when we started investing, our first property that we bought was in 1997. I think it was at about a 7% interest rate, and that continued to appreciate over time. And we were able to refinance that property and take some of that money to invest in other properties. Um, our big mistake back then was that we were giving all this great advice to our members at Real Wealth on how to invest out of state, how to buy properties that cash flow, from day one and all that. But our biggest challenge is we didn't take that advice. There was
Okay.
we had properties in Texas and they were doing well, and I wish we focused on that. But we continued to buy properties in California in the Bay Area,
Mm.
and we did a $1 million fixer that we fixed up, and so those properties had appreciated so well over the years that we're like, oh, it's all right if they're negative cash flow. We'll just make it up in appreciation. And so that was a huge lesson for us of like, you have to make sure that a property at least makes sense from the beginning, where at least don't have it be negative cash flow. I think appreciation's awesome. And that's where we've built most of our wealth through is through appreciation. But a big lesson there was to, get properties that make sense from day one. But as far as the concern about like now's not maybe not the right time to buy real estate, really honestly, it's like always a good time because when you look at it over time, we tell investors like don't look at the returns on year one. You look at a pro forma and you're like, oh, how's this going to do year one? Because
Mm.
unless you're going to be selling it after 1 year, right? It's like we're buy and hold investors. We're boring. We're in for the slow game. But
Yeah.
over time, and we've seen this with we have over 73,000 members at Real Wealth now that have built considerable wealth over time by being buy and hold investors. Their tenant is paying down the mortgage. They're getting the appreciation from the property. They're getting all those tax benefits and all these things we know are great about owning real estate. So honestly, it's that old adage, don't wait to buy real estate, buy real estate and wait. I really think that really holds true in any
Yeah.
market.
I love it. Was there ever any situation, we've seen it today where very, very similarly here in San Francisco, which is I know where you purchased, there's investors who were doing cash out refinances, even on variable loans because they were commercial. And a lot of those investors are so underwater, they're having to sell their properties because then the interest rates went up. Suddenly they didn't have that cash flow. Like, what was that moment where you suddenly were like, we are never going to play only the appreciation game? And then what did you have to do? Did you have to sell a large part of your portfolio that was under? Or kind of how did you guys think through that? And then how did you get into the right mindset to change?
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
Kathy, you should take that one as a former mortgage broker.
Yeah, yeah. Real estate can be really addictive and it's so fun to purchase and it's exciting. It's like getting a new puppy and then, you get like another one and another. Suddenly you have 10 puppies. And, if you think about it that way, um, we just got in over our heads when everything dropped. Like it would have been okay again if with our first property that we bought, it went up 100,000 every year. So what's a little negative cash flow? No big deal. But all of a
Mm.
sudden, when the property's worth half of what it's worth, then
Mhm.
it's no fun. So I think that's where we were at. There was a moment Rich just came in and he goes, "This doesn't make sense. We're negative cash flow on properties that are worth half their value. We got to let them go." And this was
Mhm.
a very difficult time because I was already kind of well known in the industry, my show had taken
Your
off and
reputation, your
yeah,
Mhm.
reputation.
like, oh my gosh, I've been advising people to do the right thing, but we kept properties that we really shouldn't have. And that was a time where lots of people were doing short sales or foreclosures, millions.
Mhm.
So it wasn't really, I guess, that bad, that
It
embarrassing
wasn't as bad
because,
as what we thought it was going to be. Yeah, it was so
yeah,
scary. Yeah.
it was scary. I wouldn't, it was a time where the government was a little bit more forgiving. There's like loan forgiveness issues when you walk away from a loan that's that you owe. You know, you've got tax implications there. But at that period of time, a lot of that was waived. So if there was ever a time to, you know, do short sales or foreclosures, it was then. And that's just what we had to just hand these properties back. Many of them that had had lots of equity. It was our future. It was our dream. We had to give all that equity, you know, all of it back to the bank.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard, but
Yeah.
it was a slap that we needed to do it right the next time.
Yeah. So then what was your first out of state investment where you said, you know what? I think you had mentioned Texas, but we're not
Yeah.
doing California. And then did you go there or did you do everything remotely? And how did you get comfortable around the turnkey model?
Well, I had Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yeah.
on the Real Wealth Show, and he explained in 2004, 2005 that he was selling all of his high-priced property in California, Florida, Nevada, and Arizona because he saw the writing on the wall. He saw that you know, these loans were going to blow up. They were liar
Hmm.
loans, and he said he was exchanging everything to buy in Texas because it had the highest population growth, job growth, and affordability in the country. So that combination of people moving to an area where it's still affordable, you know, eventually builders aren't going to be able to keep up and prices are going to go up. So it's like, oh, okay, if it's good enough for Kiyosaki, it's good enough for us. Let's do it. So initially jumped on a plane, met with a realtor. She took me to a neighborhood that was $400,000 homes. I knew the average home price was 150. So I thought, okay, this person's of no use. She's just trying to rip me off and
Yeah.
get a good commission.
Mhm.
So what I learned very quickly was the people I can trust are the ones who are going to take care of this quote unquote puppy, you know, this thing I'm going to buy.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to manage it and take care of it. That's probably who I want to talk to. So I met with probably 10 property managers to find out where the demand is, what the rental
Yep.
rates are, where the businesses are. Those were the people I really found I could trust. We ended up choosing one that had a really great reputation and great systems in place, and they helped us buy in really in like kind of in the path of progress in these growing neighborhoods. When I came back and talked about that on the Real Wealth Show, I talked about these $140,000 brand new gorgeous homes in A-class neighborhoods that we're renting for $1,500, and I talked about it, and suddenly our phones were ringing off the hook of people who wanted to know our resources. They wanted to know who our property managers were and our insurance companies and just kind of all the professionals we worked with. And that's when Rich and I created the Real Wealth Network to help other people invest out of state and not get bamboozled by those who just want to take advantage of Californians who don't know
Yeah.
anything outside of California.
Yeah, you should tell them every time they ask where I'm from when I call, I'm like, "Oh, around here," because the second you
Yeah.
say California,
Around here.
they double
Yep.
whatever it is. Um, okay, another question for you on that topic today. Who does your research for new markets to go into, and when do you know when to pull out of a market? And the reason that I ask that is like there are markets that I've seen such as Austin that were hot that you might say,
Mhm.
unless it's the outskirts of there, doesn't make as much sense. So how do you do that? And how do you suddenly tell your investors or even your partners on the ground, hey, this worked really well for like 2 to 3 years. But again, now the cash flow is not there. It's operating a little bit more like California and we're going to go somewhere else. Who does that for you? How do you guys do it all and stay up to date with that?
That's a great question. I mean, in the beginning, it was all Kathy. Kathy's obsessed with market cycles, markets, what
Okay.
drives, progress, generational, how that affects the real estate markets and all that. So in the beginning, it was all Kathy. She would research these markets. She would fly all over the country, like she said, talk to property managers. And over time, now we have a self-managing business where we have a team that does all those things. So Kathy took her process and taught that to someone, and then we created a process through that. So now we have two property team managers, is what they're called, and what they do is they'll research markets. A lot of times, Kathy will because she's around so many people in the industry and so connected, like being on Bigger Pockets on the Market podcast and being so connected that way. And a lot of her mentors, she'll hear of an upcoming market, and then she'll say to our property team managers, hey, we check out this market. And then they'll go through their whole like 97-point process of doing this, first researching what's driving the growth Is it multi-dimensional as far as different businesses there, not one big business where if that business goes out of business, that there's going to be a huge unemployment factor. So diversity of businesses, people moving there, what's driving it, and then the properties. Then they're going to research the properties. What's the typical rent? Are they cash flowing? What's the appreciation rate? Anything else you'd add on that, Kath?
Well, just now we have such a wonderful team that that go around and they've created pages and pages and pages of research to just make sure that we're in the right market and with the right team, and that it's a combination. You can find the right market and have the wrong team, or you can be in just an okay market, but when you have a great team, it can work out. So
Yeah.
finding that combination has and then monitoring it, because companies can change. That's another thing that we noticed is you can find a really great property manager, but maybe something happens to the owner and things change. So you got to be on top of these things all the time. And thankfully, because our team is so actively involved in monitoring, and also we have a lot of communication with our members to find out real time how things are going, we can stay on top of it.
Yeah, that's great. So you stay with your clients throughout the process post purchase and
Yeah.
help them. So it's more financial advice versus just turnkey buy a property and move on. It's really helping them build up until they can leave their W-2. Is that correct?
Yeah, coming from the coaching world, Kathy and I were both certified coaches before starting Real Wealth. So coming
Okay.
from the coaching world of really wanting to coach people and ask them what they want, where do you want to be in the future? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And then our investment counselors who are all also experienced investors, they all own investment properties. They've been in the game for a while. They're just so skilled at connecting with someone and sitting down and saying, okay, let's get clear. What do you want? Why do you want it? What is real wealth for you? Which
Mhm.
we define as more than just money. So it's like, what does that look like? What does real wealth look like to you? And then they help them select their portfolio based on that. Are they looking for more cash flow, more appreciation? What's their risk tolerance? They help them that way. Then they refer them to one of the brokers in these different markets. The brokers will show them the properties they have available. And then once they acquire one of these properties, then they a lot of times they'll come back to their investment counselor saying, this is the property I selected, this is why, and now I'm looking for another property, it's to follow
Yeah.
through on that goal, the 10-year plan.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about these 10 puppies. Everybody I think wants 10 puppies. I mean, you said obviously there's a lot that goes into the management of that, making sure you have the right trained puppies, the wealth for it. So there's with most folks, most Americans live paycheck to paycheck, we know, right?
Mm,
Then it takes time to build that up and have a strategy to say, I'm going to put this amount aside. You obviously don't want to be too over levered, so like 20% down, et cetera, on it. You
yeah.
want it to cash flow right away, but like you can't buy 10 rental properties right away. And so how do you work on that part of the equation and the capital side? I would just put a caveat there of like telling people, don't do your kitchen remodel at your home in California. Put that money aside, go ahead and put it into real estate as you build it. You take money out, you refinance, you go to the next. But besides that, like, how do you get someone 10 puppies and how quickly can you do that?
That's a great question. Originally, because we're from San Francisco and a lot of our clientele were there, they're really high paid. And, these are tech people who they work 60, 80-hour weeks. They don't have time to go find a property or fix it up. They just want a turnkey property that will start making money right away that they don't have to worry about for 10 years or so forth. So a lot of our clients were really high income earners who just didn't have the time to go figure it out. They wanted our help to help them build it. So they had the money is I guess the short answer.
Okay.
Then we also have had a lot of people who maybe just scrape together some money, were able to buy a property in the San Francisco Bay Area or anywhere in California for that matter, and within a few years had a ton of equity. You
Okay.
know, After, especially if they bought after 2008 when prices were down, they could have doubled the value of their property in just a few years. And those people were calling saying, I kind of don't want to be in California anymore. The landlord laws are not in our favor. That's what we specialize in is, hey, let's help you take that property, sell it, 1031 it, and really increase your cash flow by turning that one property into 3 or 5. Even one lady she inherited a property and exchanged it into 20 rental
Wow.
properties. She was making easily over 20,000 a month overnight from a property that actually had been negative cash flow in California. So her life, again, just changed overnight. But if you are not that person and you do not have equity, you did not buy in 2008, you don't have a two or $300,000 income. I usually suggest maybe your first, if you don't own any property at all, see if you can get into your first primary with 3% down. There's a lot of benefits to buying a primary. You don't have to put as much down. You get a lower interest rate. You could
Hmm.
maybe make some equity from that. It if you if that's not going to be the case because you can't afford where you live, it's expensive, then sometimes people get side jobs or they set aside that
Or house hacking.
house hacking is, yeah, we
Yeah.
did that.
Really
Yeah.
smart move.
Yeah. Yeah, we bought a house that was probably too big for us, probably too expensive, but we turned it kind of into a fourplex. We turned the office into a separate studio unit, turned the in-law unit. It already was kind of separate with a kitchen and bathroom, and that really helped us tremendously.
Yeah, helped us afford the mortgage payment. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then that's the property that appreciated so much over the years.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the story of going from negative cash flow to 20,000 in cash flow, because I'm sure there's quite a few people here in the Bay Area that could experience that. Before we go to our lightning round, you just wrote a book and launched it, Scaling Smart. For the listeners, tell us a little bit more about Scaling Smart, why they should read it.
Yeah, it's the subtitle is How to Design a Self-Managing Business. And the reason we wrote the book is because Bigger Pockets came to us and they had learned of real wealth and how we turned it into a self-managing business over the years. It took us 20 years to do it. And so they wanted us to kind of give our formula on how we did it. And so Scaling Smart's a book about how you can take your business and optimize it and really start setting it up so you have a team of inspired leaders who are motivated, who are inspired, who are really clear on the goals and the vision of the business, where you can have a culture where there's a culture of accountability and support and everyone's stoked to come to work and they're really great at their jobs. They love what they do. So it's a whole kind of a system and a process for starting with you as the business owner. Like, what do you really want from the business? What's your, just like with a real estate investor, where do you want to be in 10 years? And then designing your business around that. And then after you look at what you want and how you want your business to be, then it's all about how to structure and design your business. So over time, what you're doing in your business is what you're really good at, what you love doing, and it frees you up as a company owner to really to do that, to be getting the cash flow from the business, but also being focused on what you love doing. And that's what Kathy and I've done with Real Wealth, where now we're free to focus on passion projects, writing books together, speaking together, doing
Yeah.
podcasts like this together. So, and our team is, is just as passionate about running the business and helping our members and growing it.
Yeah, I love that. And also fighting fires for listeners, that there was a fire scare today at their house. So also fighting fires together.
Yes,
I
it
love
freed me
that.
up to be able to fight the fire here in Malibu while our team was taking care of things. Yes,
which is
I know.
why I'm here. I evacuated. All the husbands stayed and monitored the neighborhood, but all the wives ended up at this very lovely hotel.
Rich is soon going to be hired as chief of the fire department there.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Well, speaking of fires, let's go to our lightning round. Biggest mistake you made in your real estate investing career?
Ooh, I'm going to take that one, Kath. Or are we going
Sure.
to do each turn? Biggest one that comes to mind from me is not doing our due diligence on a project and a developer. So we went on this tour in Nicaragua and they showed us this new development that was going to be built. They had beautiful front gates and it was right near the beach and all that stuff. And they wined and dined us and they brought a whole case of beer on the trip and then they told us how great it was going to be. And we bought two of the investment properties with my IRA and come to find out, it's the first time this developer had ever done anything like this. He was in a whole different industry before that. It was a stupid mistake. So the biggest lesson, and I lost all my IRA money. This guy skipped town and they never made the development happen. And all my IRA money was just vanished in that. So the big lesson for us with anyone is the trust but verify. Don't just trust and be like, oh yeah, this is going to work out.
Yeah, I love that one. And I've had my fair share with developers, so I hear you on that. What's
Mhm.
a quote you live by and why?
Ooh. Uh, let's see. What was the one? Okay, this is one I came up with. Think about what you would die for and live for it.
I like that one, Kathy.
I love that a lot.
That's
It's my favorite quote. Think about what you would live for, what die for, and then live for it. Yeah.
I love that. And final question for you. When are you investing next and where are you going to invest?
Ooh, well, I mean, our focus right now has shifted a little bit. We've talked a lot about this, we built our single family portfolio with properties all over the country. And we've got some Airbnbs in Malibu. And all that's been amazing. It's been great for us. And then we bought a townhouse in Park City in a development that we actually syndicated. We built this whole development and it was so amazing right next to Woodward Action Sports Center and skiing and snowboarding that we bought a townhouse there. And so we started to have that be a short-term rental. And it was like eye-opening for us. It's like, oh, this is really cool. We can actually have this place. It's cash flowing. We can use it whenever we want and go on ski trips and everything. So now we're starting to shift our strategy a little bit to buy some of these lifestyle assets
Mm.
that are appreciating in solid markets that are new and that we can do as short-term rentals so they get great cash flow. But it also supports our lifestyle of going on ski trips and mountain biking trips and things like that.
And it's like if you compare it to the cash flow of say Cleveland property, which I have nothing against. We owned property, lots of property in Ohio, and
Yep.
you may be getting $200-300 a month, but one of those properties had a plumbing problem. $23,000 later, our cash flow was completely wiped out for many years. Kind of compare this to the townhome that we bought. We paid, I don't know, 875 for it. It's probably worth 1.2 or 1.3 just a few years later. But the biggest thing is Rich just did a cost seg on it. And
Okay.
it's probably because it's a short-term rental and because of the incredible bonus depreciation. I think Rich said we're getting like $100,000 deduction or something like that. It's
Like
in,
180,000. Yeah.
yeah,
Really,
it's
really
insane.
nice.
Wow.
So a property we can use, we can short-term rental, we can have family memories, and we get all these tax deductions and appreciation. Like, okay, I like this.
And that's what
I
a
love
lot of
it.
our members at Real Wealth are buying now is these new builds. They're, rental properties, turnkey rental properties, but they're new builds. So they come with a builder's warranty. And a lot of times
Mhm.
the builder will buy down the rate. So they're getting these crazy, like 3.25%, 3.5% mortgages. So yeah, it's kind of like just a lot of people shifting toward that model.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And I love that balance. There's ones that properties that help support your lifestyle, and then also ones that just have the cash flow that you never
Yeah,
live in
totally.
combination. Great. If listeners want to learn more about the Real Wealth Network and about the two of you, please tell us where to go next.
Well, realwealth.com is our website where you can join for free and get access to 500 free webinars. You get referrals to property teams around the country that our members rave about. If they don't rave about it, they get taken off the list. They're not there. And also, we have an upcoming live event in San Francisco. You can sign up for that at realwealth.com. And then our team created a very cool thing. It's a giveaway for the five, I believe it's like the five top markets. You could just go to realwealth.com/giveaway.
Great. We're going to go ahead and check that out. Well, Kathy and Rich, thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to the next one.
Thanks, Dane.
Awesome. Thank you so much.